On a crisp autumn morning in the small town of Valley Springs, nestled deep in the heart of Montana, the air was still, untouched by the hum of daily life. Watch this heartwarming yet shocking tale unfold as we uncover the mystery behind a girl and her giant wolfdog. Stay tuned for the full story, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more amazing tales. A sudden sound shattered the silence. A gunshot, sharp and unforgiving, rang out across the barren landscape. It echoed through the towering pines, splitting the quiet like a crack of thunder. In a clearing near the forest's edge, a 6-year-old girl named Ivy Walker froze mid-step. Her small body huddled in a thick red coat, the color bright against the whiteness of the snow beneath her. She stood motionless, watching as another shot sliced through the air, sending flocks of startled birds into the sky above. Beyond the snow-dusted trees, Ivy's gaze locked onto a group of men moving toward the fence surrounding a remote enclosure. They wore camouflage, their breath visible in the chilly morning air, their rifles held high and eyes focused ahead. The leader of the group, a broad-shouldered man named Grant, barked an order, his voice sharp with panic. "Get back. It's not safe." But Ivy didn't move. She did the unthinkable. She ran. Toward the fence. Toward the massive, dark shape pacing behind it. The creature was a wolfdog, larger than any animal Ivy had ever seen. Its amber eyes gleaming like liquid gold, fixed upon her as she approached. Ivy's small feet left prints in the snow as she closed the distance, her pulse racing with an unexplainable urgency. Behind her, her mother, Dr. Eleanor Walker, watched from the trail below, her heart pounding in her chest. "Ella? No," she called out, but Ivy was already there, standing tall in front of the men, facing the massive creature. She raised her hand, not in fear, but in command. "He's mine," Ivy said, her voice quiet but filled with conviction. The men hesitated, guns lowered, their confusion written all over their faces. They couldn't understand what was happening, how a child so small could control a beast so large. But Ivy and the wolfdog, whom she called Shadow, understood each other in that moment. In that silent exchange, a bond was formed, one that defied words. Eleanor felt her heart sink. Ivy had always been different. From the moment she was born, there was something about her that set her apart. She didn't cry like other babies. She rarely responded to the sounds of the world around her. But it wasn't just that. Ivy had a birthmark, a strange, wolf paw-shaped mark on her left wrist. No doctor could explain it. And at first, Eleanor blamed herself. She was raising her daughter alone, after all. Her husband, Mark, had passed away in a logging accident before Ivy turned 2. Life was hard enough without adding the challenges of raising a child with autism. But what worried Eleanor most was that strange birthmark. Ivy didn't talk much, and when she did, it was often in a way that seemed otherworldly. Something in her eyes told Eleanor that there was more to Ivy's silence than just her condition. One day, in search of something to help Ivy connect with the world, Eleanor met a man named Ralph Winters. He ran a sanctuary for huskies, a place tucked away in the woods, far from the nearest highway. Ralph was an older man, with graying hair and eyes as cold as ice. He introduced Eleanor and Ivy to a pup, a small black dog with a gentle demeanor. The moment Ivy saw him, something clicked. She walked straight to the fence and, without a word, placed her hand against it. The pup, now named Shadow, did the unthinkable. He walked over and pressed his nose to her hand. It was the first time Ivy had ever initiated contact with anything or anyone. That night, Eleanor had a strange feeling. She couldn't explain it, but she knew that Shadow was meant to be in their lives. Over the next few months, Ivy began to change. She started talking, first in whispers to Shadow, then in full sentences. She laughed for the first time in months. But Shadow grew quickly, far faster than a typical dog. His coat was dark as midnight, and his eyes glowed with an intelligence that unsettled Eleanor. He seemed different, not just a dog, but something more. One night, when a neighbor's dog wandered too close to their yard, Shadow didn't bark. He stood still, watching. Only when Ivy touched his flank did he relax, as though waiting for her permission. Eleanor began to ask herself, what kind of animal was this? And more troubling, what kind of connection did Ivy and Shadow share? Whispers started circulating in town. Did you hear about Eleanor Walker's wolfdog? People would say. They let that thing live with a child. The men who had appeared that morning in the forest weren't hunters. They were neighbors, frightened of the creature in their midst. But when they saw Ivy standing in front of the fence, hand raised in command, something changed. The guns lowered. She's got it under control, one man muttered, stepping back. The others followed suit, unsure but unwilling to challenge the bond they witnessed. Eleanor rushed to Ivy's side, kneeling beside her. What were you thinking? She asked, her voice shaky with fear. Ivy, for the first time in months, leaned into her mother's embrace. He was scared, Ivy whispered. I had to help him. Eleanor looked at Shadow. She finally understood that he wasn't just a pet. He was part of something greater, something she couldn't explain. As the weeks went by, Shadow's growth became even more astonishing. He wasn't just big, he was intelligent. His reactions were fast, measured, as though he was learning faster than any dog should. Ivy's bond with him deepened, but so did Eleanor's concern. She decided to seek answers and took Shadow to a wildlife geneticist at the University of Montana. The results came back like a blow to the chest. Shadow wasn't just a dog. He was a hybrid, nearly 90% wolf with a trace of Siberian husky. The implications were far-reaching, but the legal consequences were clear. In Montana, a wolf hybrid with over 50% wolf DNA had to be contained according to strict regulations. Shadow was a high-content wolfdog, and the law demanded that he be moved to a special sanctuary. Eleanor's heart broke as she made the decision to send Shadow away to Wildhaven Reserve, a sanctuary for hybrids. The separation was agonizing. Ivy clung to Shadow, tears soaking into his fur as she whispered, "You promised we'd never be apart." At Wildhaven, Shadow became a shell of his former self. He refused to eat, and his coat lost its shine. He seemed to waste away without Ivy, as if he had no purpose. Ivy, too, changed. Her drawings, once full of color, became jagged and chaotic. She refused to speak much, retreating into a world of silence. Eleanor watched helplessly as her daughter withdrew. But one night, Ivy whispered in her sleep, "Shadow, wait for me." Eleanor knew then that something had to be done. She couldn't let this bond fade. The next morning, they returned to Wildhaven. This time, Eleanor was ready to do whatever it took to reunite Ivy with Shadow. Margaret Ellis, the sanctuary's founder, watched with a knowing look as Ivy approached Shadow's enclosure. The wolfdog didn't move at first, but when Ivy whispered his name, something miraculous happened. Shadow stood, his body transforming before their eyes. He walked toward the fence, his eyes locking onto Ivy's with an intensity that spoke of years of understanding. Eleanor was stunned. Shadow's memory wasn't just recognition, it was attunement. He remembered her. And Ivy remembered him too. The weeks that followed were nothing short of extraordinary. Ivy was allowed to become a junior volunteer at Wildhaven, spending time with Shadow under the supervision of the staff. They communicated in ways no one could explain, through gestures, through the bond they shared, a bond that grew deeper every day. The town, too, began to notice. Some called it a miracle, while others whispered of dark magic. But one thing was certain. The bond between Ivy and Shadow was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. As time passed, it became clear that Ivy and Shadow were not just two beings. They were connected by something ancient, something that had been passed down through generations. A bond that no one, not even science, could fully explain. Then came the revelation. Ivy and Shadow shared a rare genetic mutation, something called the bridge gene. It allowed them to communicate on a level no one else could understand. And there was a chance, just a chance, that this gene could heal them both. A daring experimental procedure was devised. A stem cell transplant, cross-species, using shadow cells to help Ivy fight a deadly blood disease. But there was more to it. A ceremony, a sacred ritual, had to take place first. It was a bond that went beyond science, a bond that had to be recognized by both the physical and spiritual worlds. In the end, it wasn't just science that saved them. It was the bond between them, the shared history, the memories of a time long past, that healed them both. The connection between Ivy and Shadow was not just one of genetics, it was one of spirit, of destiny. And so, the legend of Ivy Walker and Shadow lived on, a story of a girl and her wolf dog, forever intertwined by blood, by bond, and by the unspoken promise of the wild.